Welcome to Wavemaker Conversations. I'm Michael Scholder. I'm thinking about calling this episode Talking to Strangers, which is one of my favorite things to do. I really do get elated after even a brief conversation with a stranger. What's happening in my brain there?
We're wired for connection, and so our brains are basically wired so that when we do connect, whether it's with a friend or with a stranger or with our doctor, we feel good. It's one of the most robust research findings that talking to strangers is great for you. People feel immediately better, even after a moment.
That was neuroscientist Ben Rain. He was one of 3 featured guests on a panel I just moderated at the Nantucket Wellness Festival, live at the Dreamland Theater. We were joined by an inspiring, dynamic OBGYN, Dr. Shieva Ghofrany, and Ian Lopayton, the entrepreneur who created the popular yoga clothing brand Spiritual Gangster. Wait a second. Maybe we can call this episode Spiritual Strangers. I'm always looking for a good title. Spiritual Strangers. I'm going to trademark it. We all started as strangers, all 4 of us, and I think we all felt great after this conversation. If you do too, then we will have helped the Nantucket Wellness Festival achieve its goal. I'm Michael Scholder. Enjoy the conversation.
Please welcome Michael Scholder.
The first thing I actually want to ask you all before we get into real details is that this is the Wellness Festival. What's your definition of wellness? And let's see if they're all the same or if we can fuse them together. But do you want to start? We start with Ben?
We could start here, sure. And I had a weird feeling I was going to get this question and still didn't think of an answer beforehand. I would say wellness is making the choices, and guiding the life that is like the right fit for you in that moment. It's having the flexibility to make choices, even if they're difficult choices, if it's the right thing that you need in that moment. And I think that freedom is important, and the control that you get with that is also important. And so it can look a lot of different ways.
And by the way, your understanding of neuroscience, does that help you be well with that definition?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's a lot. I think about the brain very mechanically, and so there's often a kind of running stream in my head of like, what's going on organically in here? And when I start to feel if I'm off, if I'm stressed, I can label that with some biological information. And usually that's really helpful, especially for also knowing kind of what's the way out.
Okay. So if at any point during this conversation you want to get a little meta and just let's hear the thoughts in your brain, that might help. So,
sounds good. You got it.
Shiva, Dr. Gofrani. Do your patients call you Dr. Gofrani or Shiva?
I mean, I joke, if you call me Dr. Gofrani, I'm like, are my parents here? Because they're retired doctors, and it makes me think I have to behave more maturely than I would like to behave. I'm very mature in the operating room. Otherwise, I want to be called Shiva. Really, truly.
Okay. So Dr. Gofrani.
Yes.
How do you define wellness?
I mean, unlike the scientist, I did not actually anticipate this question. I don't know why. We're at a wellness festival. Though I do love what Ben said. Yesterday, I had a meeting with a new financial advisor, and she asked my husband and I to list a bunch of things. And top on my list was apparently wellness, but not, I think, in the realm of what we talk about nowadays, like yoga and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that is not my idea of wellness. I think it aligns with what Ben said. It's about intention. So I feel like lately in my life, I've been able to approach my career and things with my children and just my health with a lot more intention because of just some spiritual changes that have come about in my life. And so that to me is what's wellness, right? I wish I could say it's because I exercise every day or because I practice yoga or because I deep breathe. It's none of those things. It's just that each thing I'm doing, I can do with intention and find my way through happiness in that way.
And just a quick question, how long did it take you to get to that place? Was there
56 years.
56 years?
Just got there today. Yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. Ian Lopayton, wellness?
So when you said that, my mom used to have a saying, and she said, there's a reason why wellness starts with we and illness starts with I.
Ooh.
And I think, for me, I think all suffering comes from obsessive, self-centric thinking. So if you can start to focus on the other, I think that's a really good way to be well.
And so So now let me get, so given the fact that the we is so important, which is very much the theme of this, and Ben, I'm a little obsessed with your book because not only do you talk about the brain chemistry of friendship and how friendship affects that, you also talked about the importance of talking to strangers. And my family knows that I am obsessed with talking to, there's not a stranger who I have not talked to and tried to get their email. When
There's no strangers left.
There's no strangers left. So tell me about that, because I don't know, I really do get elated after even a brief conversation with a stranger. What's happening in my brain there?
Yeah, well, we are wired for connection, and so first off, love that. I will repeat that, and I will credit you and your mother. It's incredible. That's a great phrase. We're wired for connection, and so our brains are basically wired so that when we do connect, whether it's with a friend or with a stranger or with our doctor, we feel good. We feel the sense of reward, and there's brain chemistry there that you'll learn about if you come to my talk at 4:15 tomorrow. But not to save the panel and not go deep in neurochemistry. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the most robust research findings that talking to strangers is great for you. People feel immediately better, even after a moment. Like there's a study where they had people thank their bus driver getting off, and immediately that small interaction, one sentence, people felt much better. And we were talking before this, Michael and I, about this, and I was saying I love doing this as well. I'm an extrovert. But I also love doing it because you can shift someone's mood. You can see someone sitting there and start a conversation, and by the time you leave, you've totally transformed this hour for them, and it's magnificent. It's also good for our brains and bodies, not just our mood.
And just so we don't have to wait totally till tomorrow, just give us one little piece of science so we can visualize what's happening in the brain for the introverts, so to maybe motivate the introverts.
Sure. So who's heard of oxytocin, the love hormone? All right, great. Yeah, so the reason the oxytocin is the love hormone and makes you feel like you want to connect with people is because downstream of oxytocin, there are two other neurotransmitters that it stimulates. And those two neurotransmitters are dopamine and serotonin. Who's heard of those? Yeah. Good things or bad things? Probably good things, right? Yeah, so dopamine and serotonin are both very important for signaling, something being pleasurable, something being worth doing again. There's a role between both of those connected to mood. And so actually, not to go here, but I will go here. If you look for one of the only drugs or any drug that has the same effect in the brain, one of the only ones out there is MDMA, Molly, or ecstasy. And so the fact that connecting with others has the same impact on our neurochemistry as ecstasy tells you why I feel so good to talk to strangers.
So introverts, you go for it. Shiva, you're clearly, I spoke to you for about 10 minutes earlier.
We're best friends now.
We're best friends, and what's the next level beyond extrovert? Because that's what.
I know. What is there's a new term.
Is there?
Ambivert, where you're an extroverted introvert. It's not exactly extroverted introvert, but it's.
Well, so when a new patient comes into you, first of all, you're strangers when they come in. How do you handle that relationship, and does it trigger the ecstasy?
Yeah, interestingly, I think when kids are young and you say things to, I don't know if my kids are here, by the way, because I can't see in the audience, but they were supposed to show up, but there they are. And they get sick of hearing me talk about strangers and talk to strangers, like in the grocery store, or a patient will come up and be like, I know you don't want to talk about a yeast infection. And I'm like, no, I'll talk about it. Let's talk about it right now. No big deal. That's what I do. But all jokes aside, I say when you ask kids what they want to do in their future, I think they get so confused because they don't know, unless you want to be a doctor or a teacher or whatever. I did not know what I wanted to do. I fell into medicine because I literally didn't know what else to do. It was familiar to me. My parents were doctors. I had a lot of fun in college and didn't do pre-meds. And instead of being a jewelry designer, which Ian thought I should be, I decided to be a doctor. I realized years later what I love about being a doctor is not science, because it's really not very scientific, and it's not even women's health, even though I deeply love taking care of women. It's connecting to people. And every day I get to meet new people and talk to them, engage, and learn from them while I'm trying to teach them. And truly there cannot be a better part of life. right? Just learning and engaging from them.
And not to sidetrack you, but that reminded me, there's a former baseball commissioner, Fay Vincent, who was a real oral historian of baseball, and he said, but the most fascinating thing he ever learned, there was a Hall of Famer pitcher the Hall of Fame pitcher, he asked him, who taught you how to pitch? And the answer was, who taught me how to pitch? Hitters taught me how to pitch. And it sounds to me like, I got the It sounds to me like your patients are teaching you how to become a better doctor.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think to be a good doctor, you have to be a pattern recognizer. So I have to listen to my patients and hear, like, what did these 5 women tell me their experience created, whatever. And I think that if we could all do, I mean, imagine, per Ben's conversation and book, if we could all engage and talk to each other, you learn so much from people. I mean, I always say to the kids, like, the woman at the grocery store who's bagging your groceries, at worst, you're going to make her experience better by being nice to her. And at best, you're going to learn something from this 2-second exchange. It would be so much better.
So Ian, as a pattern recognizer, I don't know if you're a pattern recognizer, but this is a way for you to explain this idea of frequency. I mean, you were just, right before we started, you were going through a whole thing about recognizing, was it the frequency of the jewelry? But you're recognizing something that most of us don't pay attention to. So tell me what it is that you've got your eyes focused on.
Well, we were talking earlier, everything's energy and frequency. But when you see frequency, it doesn't show up as a wave. If, like, we had the great sound bath. There's some great videos on YouTube, but if you lay sand on a speaker and you turn it up, every different frequency has a different pattern. So everything's a pattern. And you can, frequency is how the universe works. So everything's a pattern, and really, like, disease can be a pattern, wellness can be a pattern. And like we were talking about Oliver Jewelry, all of our jewelry has different energy and frequency, but the way we live in a universe that's all frequency. And most people's, basically this chair's, the frequency, it's moving slow. And as frequency gets higher, it moves faster and faster and faster. And there's 7 energy centers in the body, all of them are at different frequencies. And when you hit the heart, it actually goes above the speed of light. So like Newtonian physics or anything is all below the speed of light. And up here, it becomes higher frequency. And higher frequency touches source more often. So everyone's been around people, you're like, I got to get away from that person. And you've been around people like, oh, I love this person, I can't wait to know more about them. So people at higher frequency are vibrating and they're closer to source.
So one is typically attracted, whether they recognize it or not, to people of higher frequency.
Yeah, I mean, everything's frequency. So it's naturally like there's places you want to be. Like Nantucket's beautiful. This is like a dreamland, right? It's a different frequency than if you go to, like, I grew up in Detroit or you go to Toledo or something like that. But places have frequency, objects have frequency, people have frequency. So like I can read frequency and, but everything has a pattern. And then you can also learn how to raise your frequency and change your pattern.
And you've learned a lot of this, very specifically through teaching meditation throughout the world. Is that where you actually got some of these insights?
I feel like I've had a lot of great teachers. I have 2 enlightened teachers in India, and I spent 6 weeks in silence with them, and they've taught me a lot about frequency. And I just actually spent 10 days with Joe Dispenza, who has a whole way of, talking about science and frequency. But the more you understand, so there's all these frequencies happening, and the only frequency most humans can see is the colors of Roy G. Biv, right? And that's 1%, less than 1% of all the frequencies that are available. So like, what are the chances that you actually are perceiving all of reality when you literally can see or recognize less than 1% of it?
Okay, so now in terms of perceiving reality, now let me go to you, Shiva, because you have been through a lot. I mean, just reading your homepage, I'm thinking, okay, this is somebody who is resilient. I want to learn from her. Tell the audience a little bit, not the audience, the community, a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are now.
I could joke that I have like the what's what of women's health, because I have been through a bunch of miscarriages. So 6 miscarriages, I have 3 children. I'm very, very lucky and blessed to have them. My oldest one, unfortunately, when he was inside, had a stroke, but he's alive and healthy and 22 and in the audience. My 18-year-old boy was born with a club foot, which compared to the stroke seems like not a big deal, really. My daughter was born when I was 41, and it was a big surprise, despite being a gynecologist. I know how this works, but apparently these things happen. And through that, I've had endometriosis, I had HPV, all the things that women go through. And it's really helped me kind of empathize with each one.
Did you? I thought you said ovarian cancer too?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say each time something happened, I would joke like, okay, God, this is one more way for me to relate.
Right.
I got this. Like, I don't really need to, I can empathize. I don't need to go through everything.
Right.
And then at 46, I actually got ovarian cancer. But again, because I'm a gynecologist, the good news was I was able to detect it early. People know, I'm sure, as women, that it is detected late most of the time. And so it was a teaching point for me, and it became a great teaching point for my patients. I mean, I always joke, like, you've never gotten street cred as a doctor more than when you've had ovarian cancer. If I tell my patients to go get an ultrasound, they are like going to get an ultrasound immediately. So it taught me a lot. I mean, I think I was an empathetic doctor before, but it really helped me see the patient experience really differently. And it sounds corny. I would never say things like, things happen for a reason. It was so great. It really sucked. It was 10 years ago. I mean, it sucked. But there was, I say all the time, I don't think things happen for a reason. I think things happen because shit hits the fan and our bodies are flawed, and then we have to find reason within it. And I was really able to find so much reason within it, and a lot of beautiful things. I mean, funny things. Like, I was like, certainly this is a sign. I should be working less. And then I continued to like overwork myself until 3 years ago. But yeah, I've been through a lot. But listen, I joke. I mean, all of us in the audience could sit here and say, I've been through XYZ, right? We've all experienced stuff. And, I'm going to be here till I'm in my 95 or 96, I think.
And by the way, that frequency recognition, so, your point was like, we don't even recognize most of it. What do you recognize now that even 5 years ago you just didn't see, you didn't recognize, but it was real and it existed?
I mean, if I had to reduce it to a saying for our talk, I will tell you what I realized. You know how people say these things like, life is short? I hate that term. It's so scarcity, it's so pithy, it's wrong. So I always say what I learned from ovarian cancer is actually the opposite. Life is not short, life is long. Whether it's a year or 10 years or 30 years, it's long. So I always say I'm going to live the shit out of it because however long it is, that is your length of time. So in fact, as opposed to, oh my God, I have to get things done because life is short, it's the opposite. Like, I have to really engage and enjoy every single exchange because life is long. And if I do things I hate, I'm going to be bored and pissed off for a long time,
First of all, I'm so thrilled because I just recently started an Instagram. If we can just get the live the shit out of life, if we can just get that, I know that's going to get a lot of traffic.
There we go. We're going to TM it right now.
A trademark. So Ben, listening to this, I'm just thinking from, again, what are you thinking in your head as you listen to Shiva, the evolution there, what's been happening in her brain that she might not even be aware of?
Menopause. That's what happened.
Menopause, okay.
But you're aware of it.
But I'm very aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's resilience, right? Your story is incredible, everything you've been through, and the strength to continue, and also mindset, right? Growth mindset, the strength to see everything as a challenge, as an opportunity. When you keep saying, okay, God, I get it, I'm being tested, right? That's something I can relate to. Challenge can either be seen as oppression or it can be seen as opportunity for growth. And that actually isn't, sorry, everything has to always come back to like neuroscience for me, but it's an interesting question of like,
That's why you're here.
Right, I know, yeah, sorry.
You don't care about your daughter who just was born?
Yeah, I actually heard a baby in the back and I thought, is she here? But yeah, it's impressive, and I think it's stress is something that can be very, very damaging to the body. It's one of the reasons, in fact, why isolation is bad for us, because it triggers a stress response, biological stress response. But the way that you approach it, it makes a big difference. That might be my daughter. And like, there's these studies that are so fascinating. They were done in mice or rats, I think, but they basically put a running wheel in the where they were hanging out, and some of the rats, let's say, were able to go in and just run at will, whatever they wanted to do. Other rats were like forced to run. And so they were doing the exact same thing, but the rats that were forced to run didn't show any of the biological benefits of exercise. And it's fascinating that like mindset and perspective of what you're experiencing completely transforms the way it's processed. And when you're talking, Ian, I was thinking about, I can't remember the details, but I read a study some years ago where they put people in brain scanners and they found that they could detect magnetic fields. And I can't remember what it was or how they did it, but I think I made an Instagram video or TikTok video about it at one point, so it's out there somewhere.
All right, so now we need your meditation advice, because we are talking about stress and you have taught meditation all over the world. Coming back to that quote about who taught you how to pitch hitters, have your students taught you something? And since you've taught all over the world, are there any secrets you've picked up from different parts of the world that are distinctive insights?
So great question. I think, my own suffering has been my greatest teacher. And what I realized, and this is really new to me, it was taught to me by really two enlightened teachers. They have a movement called Ekam. And I was like very stressed out, and I thought it was my own thinking. But what I realized and what I've come to teach now is there's basically, some people here from New York, some people are from Florida, some people are from Boston, but there's only two states. And I'm not talking about like states in the United States. I'm talking about basically states of being. There's a stressful state, and then there's what I call a beautiful state. And the stressful state is worry, fear, anxiety. And the beautiful state is joy, serendipity, gratitude. And depending on your state is how your life goes. So any decision you make from a stressful state causes more stress, causes more anxiety, causes more fear. And when you make decisions from a beautiful state, miracles start to happen. And so they take people and they can scan their brain, and our neuroscientists will know this. There's like beta, alpha, delta, theta, gamma. And we are magnets to the point. So there was a Yale scientist he scanned all these eggs. He said, are there electromagnetic fields around things? And he said, okay, every egg of anything has on the bottom of it a negative charge and the top of it a positive charge. And the same thing with the body. You have a negative charge here and a positive charge. And there's an electromagnetic field around the body. And most people don't have it turned on. So when you can basically learn through breathing and meditation to activate the field, it's like I have a cell phone right there. And most of us here have a cell phone. But if the cell phone's not activated, it's not connected to the cloud. And then when you turn it on, and basically when you charge it, there's a polarity, you get unlimited access to the field. So everything is we're basically magnets, and there's negative and positive, but they're like everything on the planet is like that. But it comes down to like what state are you living in, and you can brain scan people, you can change. Most people live in beta, which is fight or flight. It's fear. And, fear is good. Like if someone walks out here and has a gun, or, there's a tiger chasing you, you're like, okay, go. But most people now, and for me, it was like, oh, you have a business thing and you are fear, or you have an email and you react. It's like all these things we perceive as threats aren't actually threats. And this happens.
So you have been a successful entrepreneur, both in the classes you've taught and the activewear, what's the name of the brand again?
Spiritual Gangster.
Spiritual Gangster. A lot of people who we know and don't know, we're spiritual gangster to go to yoga, to meditate. You grew a successful business, you sold it to...
So it was interesting. We built a global brand, and at the end of it, I was so stressed out, and I literally couldn't wait to get away from it. And I didn't know what needed to change, but my state was completely stressed out. So all these things were causing more stress, and I would make bad or worse decisions. And when I got to India, I realized, wow, it's my state. And if I'm living in a stressful state, everything that I'm doing is causing more stress. And I'm perceiving everything as a threat that's not actually a threat. And then I was able to change my state, and they actually hooked me up to a brain scan. So when I got there, I was completely in beta. fight or flight. And in beta, all you do is perceive threat. There was no fucking tiger chasing me, but every little thing I perceived as a threat. And then I learned how to, through meditation, through movement, through all these different practices, to change my state. And my brain scan went from beta, then it goes alpha, theta, but like I was in high gamma. And then like miracles and synchronicities and serendipities happen everywhere. You see the opportunity versus perceiving the threat. So everything comes back to like, what's my state?
So give me the spectrum again. It's beta is the worst, and then
Well, it's not worse. Like, look, if you're about to get mugged or something, beta's good. Like,
but in general, you don't want to be living day to day, hour to hour in beta. What do you want to be living in, or is it just somewhere on the spectrum, but just not
like,
beta?
As an example, like when you're in beta, like your focus gets really narrow. So you're like, okay, here's the threat. Let me get out of here to safety. But what happens is like, you know, who here has like been stressed, right? And who here is stressed right now? And like, who's even stressed about being stressed? But most of us are in stress all the time. They're in the state of stress. And when you're in a state of stress, like an alpha state, you're creative, you get new ideas. When you're in a gamma state, like it's fully, you're like plugged into the field. So ideally, beta is good for like maybe less than 1% of the time, but most people are living in beta all the time.
Okay, so I just, how do you guys respond to that? Because that's really interesting and relevant.
Yeah, I would love to talk about this because so patients say to me all the time, like I'll tell them they need a C-section or they're going to have surgery or they're going to have something or they have an abnormal mammogram, for example. And women will say every single day things like, my biggest fear is an abnormal mammogram. I'm so scared I'm about to have a C-section. And I always say to them, fear should be used when you're being chased by an animal in the wild. What you're feeling right now actually is anxiety and nerves, which is so natural and normal. And I would never sugarcoat it and tell you not to feel it. That's silly. You are anxious, you are nervous. But fear, again, should be this perceived immediate threat. But we're so used to using these terms really loosely. So every single day, per Ian's conversation, people are saying things like, I'm so scared, I'm so scared. So we're chronically living with this cortisol stress reaction that not only we know cortisol is bad for us, but it probably depletes your ability so that when all of a sudden someone runs in and you are really in need of fight or flight, you almost can't access that. People don't know which state they should be in because they're so chronically kind of choosing to live that way, partially because they're using these terms loosely, but it's invoking. I mean, obviously energy matters, words matter, right? They create an energy in us. So I really try to help the patients understand not to use words like fear or scared when it's not relevant and valid, because there are other times where it really is. I mean, there's so many other traumas that occur to them. They should.
Can you give me a story of one patient, obviously anonymously, but
Yeah.
one story of one patient where you think you were able to push that patient away from...
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that I can say actually many patients, meaning even on Instagram, I mean, it sounds so silly. There's so much bad with social media, but people will write to me and say, that video you did that time about HPV. HPV is a common one. Everyone knows about HPV, I assume. 90% of us carry it. But when you read HPV causes cervical cancer, people get so scared. In reality, HPV is something 90% of us in this room have or have had. So when they hear my voice kind of saying, listen, hey, I'm just calling to tell you you have HPV, no big deal, this is what's gonna happen. You know, multiple people will say decades later, God, I could hear your voice saying, I'm gonna be okay, most of us have HPV, most of us will not have cervical cancer, I shouldn't be scared of it, I thought of your voice, or I thought of your voice as I was about to have a C-section because I watched your video talking about, you know, why I'm nervous and anxious, it's okay to be nervous and anxious. I always say nerves are normal, don't be scared. And so I'm glad that I think women are willing to listen. They just don't get offered these tools. They don't get taught that. They get modeled the opposite a lot of times.
But now give me a specific patient. Patient X came into you.
Yeah.
You were curious about something because you didn't like something in a blood test or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Just spend 2 minutes walking me through you and a patient and how you got them to not hyperfixate
Oh, I mean.
on the negative.
So again, myriad examples. Yesterday, I had a telehealth patient whose father had breast cancer. Do we know this, that men can have breast cancer? It's very rare. She was riddled with fear. Her father carried the BRCA gene. She did not. But she said, I'm still scared because I know the family history. And I said, in fact, here's the great news, and this is genetics. If you have a parent who has cancer and that parent tests positive for a gene and you test negative for the gene, that's actually the best case scenario we could come up with. And no doctor in her past 20 years of knowing about this had ever explained that to her. So she's lived in 20 years of truly like fear. And it was such a simple thing. It was one sentence I had to tell her that this is how genetics work. You know your father carries the gene. We know you don't carry the gene. That's not common.
How did you know she didn't carry the gene? Did you?
Because she got tested.
Because of you or before?
No, before me.
Okay.
I would have made her get
So
tested, but
so she knew that
she
fact,
knew she was
but
tested.
She didn't connect the
but
dots.
no one definitively connected those dots that dad's positive, you're negative, therefore you do not carry his gene.
In your body of work, you have this phrase that you keep on repeating. Why didn't anybody tell me this? What's your mantra?
No one ever told me.
No one ever told me.
No one
As
ever
a
told me.
woman,
Yeah.
about women's health, which made me think about Michelle Obama's speech on the campaign trail, right before the election, where she gave that whole speech about men. You need to listen because we go through things you can't even imagine. And we weren't taught about it ourselves, so sometimes we're in the dark. So just give me a sense of how you have been able to use that to transform your medical practice.
Oh, I mean, I feel like I was raised by a mother who's a doctor and wonderful and so empathetic. And even as a pediatrician, she didn't know the things to tell me. I think every woman in this room would agree. It's like 99% women in here, I think, anyway, right? Like, no one ever told us that periods should not put you in bed with a heating pad. No one ever told us that we're all going to get HPV and many of us are going to get herpes and not know about it. No one ever told us that you're going to birth the child potentially and like leak out of every orifice and like feel like your insides are falling. I mean, no one ever told us most of these things. And the people who do tell us sugarcoat it, or they make people feel like it has to be like glasses half full. I was going to say to Ben that when I do feel like I'm pretty positive and I have resilience, but I would never endorse or condone look at the bright side, glasses half full. I would really encourage people. I tell patients all the time, like, come in and complain to me while we also look at the beauty within the suck of what we've dealt with. But I think no one's ever, again, taught us these tools about our body, what's going to happen to our body, the fact that we're going to get through it. I mean, every single one of us has been through stuff, and yet we're all still here in Nantucket, like in a beautiful theater. And so if someone could frame that for us ahead of time and not sugarcoat life and make it seem like it's going to be fine, we would all do better.
Sounds like a great book title. No one ever told me.
Okay.
The health handbook
Don't
every
take it.
woman
Don't take
deserves. I have a very strong feeling about social media specifically. Who here has ever been bullied online or had someone say something mean to them or witnessed someone else say something really mean to someone they wouldn't say in person? So this happens all the time. Online hostility is like really bad. And I'm sure you've experienced this on your videos. I have every single time. And so does everyone on the internet. And another thing I've studied is empathy. And empathy is something that, your brain kind of activates in a similar way to the person you're observing. If someone's in pain, your brain kind of models that. If they're happy, your brain kind of models that. And the way it does that is by looking at their social cues, their facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, all those things. And when we're on social media, we don't have that. And there's none of those cues. And so these empathy systems don't really engage. And so the neural brain experience of a virtual interaction is really not representative of what the brain thinks an interaction should be or expects from an interaction. And so we're much more prone to turning off those brain areas and not empathizing and being hostile and saying things we don't really mean. So my thought is, connect in person if you can. I strongly think it's the better way to go. And also, just to close this, because I may not have answered your question, studies show that people who spend more time on social media are at higher risk for anxiety and depression. And taking time away from social media is the antidote. People's depression and anxiety rates go down, their sleep gets better. So, yeah.
So this connects to everything. It connects to your beta state. It connects to going in and looking at the more positive, holistic. But let me say, it comes back to the talking to strangers in person. So, you and I were talking earlier, we could do a whole conversation on your background, but, Shieva Ghofrany, is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. Gofrani, it's okay, Gofrani. I mean, we're all on top of the news here, and we know when we hear a Persian name, an Iranian name, and you have deep Iranian roots, you even speak Persian, and just you got to tell me a little bit, and then I'm going to get to the point about why this is all connected. But, you have strong feelings about your background and politics. We don't have to get into talking about politics because that's why we're all out of the beta state at this moment. We're not talking about politics, but still, just 2-minute background on your fascinating life.
Well, I think you're referring to the fascinating weirdness. So I was born in America. My parents came from Iran in the 60s to do residency because they were doctors, and they were, very liberal, very socialist. In fact, my dad, as I joked, was a very religious atheist, and so he was a little bit perturbed when his 2 daughters, who he educated, and in Iran, the woman's family would not pay for a wedding. A man's family would pay for the wedding. So he used to joke like, oh my God, I educated you both and now I'm supposed to pay for the wedding as well. And my sister and I both happened to marry Arab Christian men. And so for an Iranian to have his daughters marry Arabs, he's very liberal, but we would joke about that. And then to marry Christians, because he was against religion, was unusual. My husband is an Israeli, but Palestinian, but Catholic, married to an Iranian, not Jewish, but I went to medical school in Israel, and my husband now owns bagel stores in the waspiest towns in America. So it's just a funny, strange, we kind of traverse all the, I can kind of stealth get into every situation and understand. But I have no passport. I have nowhere to go. I'm stuck. I'm either America or Israel, Gaza, Iran. I don't have any. I want to go to Dublin, but I can't go anywhere else. I have no other good passport to escape to.
And now that you're talking about Iran, how many people are watching, how many people are watching the series Tehran? Anybody? I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about, just to give the Nantucket Book Festival a shout out, one of our favorite authors who has appeared here a couple of times is Azar Nafisi, who we had talked about, and she's one of the great Iranian immigrant, came here. And she has a thing about books, and this is, I want to get to your insights too, and then we can wrap it up on strangers. She says, books, to talk to a stranger about a book, even if you disagree, makes the two of you what she calls intimate strangers. It's a beautiful phrase, and I wonder if that applies to meditation, when you meditate with strangers. I don't know what your thoughts are on books, because for you, it's not books that are bringing people together. Maybe it is at times, but it's more that personal meditation guidance. Intimate strangers, however that registers in your mind, let me know.
There's a similar term I've heard of recently, maybe different direction, but it's called a fringe ship, like a friendship, but a fringe, like on the fringe. And it's like a person who you go to yoga class with, and you see them every once in a while in a certain setting. You're not really friends with them, but you are familiar with them. And so maybe that's kind of the realm of intimate stranger.
I believe life's about connection, and his whole book is about when you connect, there's molecules that get released, you feel better. But I think that, even when you're meditating with people, there's a field that gets created. And, we were talking earlier, it's you want to be like a school of fish or a flock of birds where everyone's a leader, everyone's a follower. And the way that energy works is coherent. When energy waves combine, they get more intelligent and they get bigger. So there's an intelligence that happens in the field when everyone gets on the same frequency. Like we started today, we did a great meditation, everyone was on the same frequency, and it elevates the entire field. And I also think, one thing that I've experienced is one of the greatest way to connect is being authentic and sharing vulnerably. You'll build bridges. But when you're sharing ego or bragging, you build ditches. So I think it's all about learning how to connect with other people, and you feel better, they feel better. And I lead a Zoom meditation. There's some people in this room on it, and it's not even on person, it's on Zoom, and people from all over the world, but it's non-local. The field is everywhere.
Bridges versus ditches, we versus I. Takeaways, really easy. That was recorded a few weeks ago live at the Nantucket Wellness Festival. Next week, I'm going to share a conversation about America at 250, using as a starting point the life story and transcendent oratory of the great abolitionist leader Frederick Douglass, And I don't know of anyone who can channel Frederick Douglass better than one of the leading historians of the Civil War and Reconstruction, the man who won a Pulitzer Prize for his biography of Douglass, the dynamic David Blight. He and I will take it into the present and future as well when we're joined by Peter Baker, who's the chief White House correspondent at the New York Times, and Susan Glasser, veteran reporter and writer at the New Yorker. That's part of my Wavemaker Conversations summer series, live at the Dreamland Theater, that took place this Independence Day, the very day 250 years ago that the Declaration of Independence was signed. If you'd like to stay informed about future Wavemaker Conversations and see what you might have missed, please sign up for my newsletter on Substack. You can also follow me on Instagram at Wavemaker Conversations or check out my website at wavemaker.me. So many ways to connect. It comes back to that theme we started with. Don't be a stranger. I'm Michael Schulder. Thanks for listening to Wavemaker Conversations, where curiosity meets hope.